Show. She was gorgeous. Her name's Kelly, and she worked with me on a commercial for The Lost Weekend. You can see it on the MTV YouTube from a million years ago. Van Halen, Lost Weekend. Short black hair, great looking, real fit gal. And she's sitting around my side, and we started talking, and we started to have lunch. And about a week later, I sent her a letter. It was a telegram. At the time, it was telegrams, which was very romantic because, that's like Casablanca. And in the telegram, it says, look out your window. It's the middle of winter. It's snowing, but there's going to be a limo that has arrived with this telegram. You shared with me that you have a couple of weeks off and you were thinking of visiting your parents, but you didn't have the money to go back, and it's not quite the holidays, so you were just going to knock around your little apartment downtown in the village, and that you were non-associated or in between love affairs and soirees, as I eternally or historically have been. I'm paraphrasing my telegram, of course. But if you like, get into the limousine and it'll take you to the airport, and the airplane will take you to Miami, and the Miami airplane will take you to Port-au-Prince in Haiti. And we'll fall in love. And we did. And she did. This was no knock-around dame. Rolling and tumbling. She rolled the dice, and we were together almost for 2 years. Haiti was hopping. You had people from all over the world going there because it's French spoken directly. After that, it's Creole and then English. For example, how's it going in Creole is "Ça passe, mon ami." In French, it's "mes amis," okay? But "mon ami," "ça passe, mon ami," "non pour les petits petits," means I'm taking it step by step in Creole. And the cost was zilch because it was a dictatorship. Yes, I had social blinders on. I kind of liked the old me better because ignorance for me was ecstasy. That's way beyond bliss because I was really, really ignorant. How many rock stars, Tom, does it take to put in a light bulb? How many?
One.
You know, because you know where this is written. It's carved in stone at Thermopylae where the Spartans were. It takes one rock star to put in a light bulb because you simply hold the bulb and wait for the world to revolve around you. And it did. Oh boy, it did. So keep that in mind. That I had on social blinders and I was on the ascent, okay? I'm a miracle on heaven-sent ascent and nothing else seemed to matter. Today, I'm very, very aware, and I don't know that I would duplicate some of this, but you know what? In fact, I would do it all over again exactly the same way, Tom, but just not for free. Translate that into Hebrew where I find my place again. The cost was zilch because it was a dictatorship. It was wildly corrupt. Corrupt. I think it's the second poorest country in the world, and certainly the poorest nation in this hemisphere. It's part of a James Bond movie to go to a dictatorship or to visit a place in a third world country and gamble there. But you don't just gamble like poker. You play baccarat. Play something like that, like James Bond. And many James Bond movies were shot in Port-au-Prince at the famous Olafson Hotel. It's very ancient, like antebellum is what it's called. Old Southern style columns, very white, colonial style, and a number of, whenever you see James Bond in the tropics, very often because it's 3 hours south of Miami, it was corrupt, it was a dictatorship. Baby Doc Duvalier, who was an Idi Amin, Joseph Stalin level horrible dictator, of course, would broker deals with Hollywood and American government for all kinds of things. And if you wanted to make, for example, I was flying home on the airplane and I turned to a young lady who looked very well-to-do and I said, where are you from? She says, I was born in Haiti. But you seem Spanish, like you have a Spanish. She says, oh, yeah, my father makes baseballs in Haiti. And then my first joke was, how many baseballs does the average Haitian eat? And she laughed and she said, no, Rawlings. We make the baseballs for the entire world. And the same thing will happen for golf gear and scuba gear and shoes. And this was before South America and Mexico really started to kick in, before the Chinese fabrication markets, really kicked in. And how many James Bond movies have you seen where he's sitting across from an Idi Amin knockoff, gambling in some quasi-African somewhere between Saint-Tropez and Uganda, with a name like Zaramba? Well, that would have been the Olafsen Hotel with the huge ferns and the columns, and everybody's wearing white suits. You ever read Graham Greene's The Comedians? It was written in the 60s about Haiti and all of the political carryings-ons, because there were all kinds of people. It was like the south of France. You could hide in Haiti because the dictatorship would allow you to escape from whatever other country you had just robbed as a kleptocrat, I guess the thing is. So if you were just the premier of Tanganyika and Cuban forces just drove you out, well, you could take your $1 billion and hide in Port-au-Prince, and you would sit around at the Hotel Olafsen. It was very much like Cuba was in the 40s and the 50s, with the gambling, the nightlife, fancy hotels, and spurious characters of all types. The Olafsen Hotel rose up in the middle of Port-au-Prince, a huge slum, but the Olafsen itself was antebellum. Deep Old South with the white lattice work, columns, and balconies, and you would go up to the Olafsen Hotel to drink, literally, mint juleps. It was right out of the movies. All of them spy movies. One fella, his name was Prosper, always wore an ice cream white suit with a gold chain cross for his watch pocket and a monocle with a gold rim and a chain. Always carried a black polished ebony cane with a gold top, white shoes, always immaculate. Little bit of jewelry and a shaved head, and this is like 1982. Nobody had shaved heads unless you were a villain or a real villain. And it was a military dictatorship, complete with death squads called the Tontomakut. Everybody was being listened to, and everybody was being watched, and there were all kinds of deals going on. Remember The Godfather, Part 2, when they're in Cuba right before the revolution, Tom? Same thing. Same floor shows, same hotel life, surrounded by abject poverty. Some people, whether it was congressmen or Eurotrash party people or industrialists, they're all just showing up. A lot of show people passed through there. A lot of really famous lead singers from incredibly famous rock and roll bands would go and spend some vacation time with other very famous women. But let's keep rolling and tumbling. I'll meet you in Kashmir right after this next anecdote. I'd be invited to ride around in Baby Doc Duvalier's big cigarette speedboat, okay? Baby Doc was Papa Doc's son, an illiterate buffoon, had been thrown out of all the major private schools, a billionaire. His father had robbed the country blind. His father ran death squads. And the name of his cigarette boat, painted jet shiny black, was the Executioner. Anybody who knows how to own and operate a cigarette boat and maintain it would also know Van Halen. There is a technical symmetry there that you're going to be spending enough time in a maritime garage with the radio and the stereo on, and if you own a cigarette boat, that's going to be a pretty good stereo. You're going to have satellite 1, satellite 2, shortwave 1, and shortwave 2, which is how in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, you would have heard Van Halen. To me, this was all out of Dr. No. Again, James Bond, and I had blinders on to everything. But I figure I can bond with anybody, so I got to know all of the homeboys who were also working the bar. The guys who were doing the baggage and the luggage and, the door fellas and folks in the know, what we might call locals. You can't be a local in a beach town with people from all over the world coming for festive, colorful vacationing celebration, and not know my stentorian tones. Whether you're the guy changing the records in the jukebox or the fresh, bright, percolating young couple dancing to it on the parquet floor 20 meters over there in the corner, y'all know me. So I get to know everybody behind the bar. I know the chambermaids. I know the housemaids. I know the hostesses and everybody. And they invited me to the birthday of the devil. This is right around, I think, November 1st. So Big Eddie and I end up in a Jeep with two completely strange bar guys and drive into the interior of Haiti in the middle of the night. Now, the birthday of the devil is based on one concept. Haiti is 80% Catholic and 100% voodoo. They practice Catholicism in its infinite varieties, but they all practice voodoo to some extent, and that's African. Cut to me, Big Ed, my girlfriend, maybe 300 Haitian blacks, none of whom speak any English, and most of them only speak interior Creole, which is vaguely French, but mes amis is French, mon ami is Creole. It's really patois. And this crowd comprised of every village within spitting distance who had sent the main priest and his assistant to the local voodoo sect. And they're all going to meet under, again, a thatched roof. We've been pounding drums since dawn. They've been pounding drums since dawn. We got there around midnight. And it's just a rooftop with thatching. Okay, there's no walls to it because it's, again, incredibly hot. And they've been hammering and hammering. And everybody's sweating. Everybody's bleary-eyed and everybody's carrying on. We're the only white people there. Everybody there works at the local hotels, so they're wearing gear that they've taken from the hotels. The main priest is wearing a paper 4th of July Uncle Sam hat, red, white, and blue with Christmas tree tinsel wrapped around his neck. He's totally delirious from rum and whatever else, and he's been dancing all day since dawn. The main priestess has on a muumuu and one of those transparent blue plastic sun visors with the digital lights that go blink, blink, blink all the way across, and it says, Miami, Miami, Miami. This is what I remember. And they're dancing around inside a hut. It's not really a hut because there's no walls to it. That would be unbearable as far as the heat and humidity. And it's unbearable. And they're sacrificing chickens. Now, I say it funny, but I mean this money. What they're wearing to them is merely colorful and festive. They're celebrating the birthday of the devil, and they take that dead serious, and they're going to sacrifice 20, 25 chickens right in front of us. The main priest steps in, and he smacks the chicken on the head with the flat side of a machete blade, and this is all to pounding drums. Maybe 30 different drummers are boom, boom, stop, boom, stop, boom, and the idea is to work yourself into a frenzy like at any Baptist, Pentecostal, gospel sort of service, all right? And they smack the chicken on the head with the flat side of a machete blade a couple of times, and it stuns it. And then he puts it in his mouth, feathers and everything. And each of the other priests dances up in delirium and tears off a piece of the chicken with their mouth, not using their hands, and chews it up and swallows feathers, bones, and everything. And they each take turns doing this until ultimately there's nothing left of that once live but now dead raw chicken except the rib cage and the neck bones, which they place in the middle of the hut on the sand and then draw a sand figure of Lazuli, the goddess of tonight. We watched this for a couple hours, and I says to him, Big Ed, I need a little breather. And there's tension now in the air. I can see because people are starting to get more serious. The sound of the drums is getting more, whatever you call it, it's faster. The rhythm is faster. And there's got to be like 50 drums now going. And we go out and we sit next to this little tool shed. Looks like a little tool shed. For a few minutes, the drums suddenly stop, and everybody starts coming out of the shack and walking towards the tool shed. Remember, there's only 3 white people here. And I think to myself, we're in for it now. And I have no idea what's going to happen. Maybe I've insulted somebody with my mere presence. We've been dignified. We've been quiet. But we look like Hell's Angels at the bar mitzvah. What are we doing here? And I noticed that right behind us, we're leaning against the door of what we think is a small tool shed, small enough for a very small tractor. And I now see that there are now lights in that shack right behind us. The whole time, there were people in that shack we did not know about. It's rough hewn, and the space between the boards allows me to see that it's candlelight. Lo and behold, no exaggeration, the doors open up very slowly. It's 2 doors split down the middle. They open side right, side left, really, really slow. And ceremoniously, I'm going to guess 250 Haitians surround the shack. Slowly, they're carrying candles. The drums have all stopped, and the doors open up. And Tom, 6 fellas come walking out very slowly backwards with a child's coffin on their shoulders. This symbolizes the birth of the devil. When he is born, he progressively gets younger somehow and then dies. It's abstract. The devil is born backwards. How was your Saturday? A procession gets formed and we march down this 2-lane blacktop in the pitch black. This is now a child's coffin draped in red is carried backwards out of a tool shed. He is born from hell backwards, all right? And a procession forms. We must be 4 hours Jeep ride into the interior of Haiti itself. And when you know the geography of Haiti, I think it was Napoleon's nephew or whoever traveled through Haiti. That's, there's French spoken there way back in the 1700s. And when Napoleon said, "What's the island like?" he crumpled up a big piece of parchment paper and threw it on the table and says, "It's built like that. It's mountains and fissures and canyons and hills, and there's no flat anything." So 4 hours into the interiors, up, down, all around. Where are we? I have no idea. And we form a procession, and we begin to march down this 2-lane blacktop in the pitch black. And now the drums are starting again. And everybody's starting to chant. And these 6 fellas are carrying a child's coffin backwards. And the folks are kind of dancing and making a move and kind of training and soul training and dancing. And we march for almost 2 miles down this blacktop in the middle of nowhere. Every now and then, a bus will go by, but like a work bus for people with, chickens on the lap and the bustle rack on top with people sitting on the back. The occasional, maybe a tourist goes back. I can imagine what we looked like. And we danced maybe 2 miles to a graveyard. And we danced on the graves until dawn and drank rum. And one by one, everybody fell asleep in the bushes, including me. And I woke up in the bushes about 10 o'clock the next morning. And Ed and I found our way back home with a couple of fellows who had a Jeep, and they took us back to the beach from where we were, dropped us off in the sand. Happy birthday, baby.
Roth Show.
Huge freight liners, as big as you can possibly imagine, 25 stories tall with thousands and thousands of containers, would routinely pull into the port of Port-au-Prince, containing things like Gloria Vanderbilt jeans panels. The front panel, the back panel, all the pockets, the selvage, the cover for the seaming, etc. This was explained to me by some of the locals. I was then shown acreage. There'd be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women at ancient foot-operated, where you push it with your foot, sewing machines, pre-war sewing machines, sewing together Gloria Vanderbilt designer jeans in the 1980s, and Maraschino jeans, and think of all the designer kinds of clothing, Halston, Ferrucci. That's a chic song, actually, Halston, Gucci, Fiorucci at that time was being assembled in Haiti. So there was a lot of cash bouncing around. And like most brutal, super repressed military dictatorships, things were relatively tranquil. Baby Doc Duvalier was the son of Papa Doc Duvalier, a classic, super harsh, belligerent torturer. He was a torturer. Baby Doc Duvalier had a wife named Michelle. Michelle was very, very hot. She was very international, had been educated internationally. They spoke French. They understood high quality. This is all pre-internet. But Baby Doc Duvalier is basically an illiterate, genetically misfired buffoon, literally. And he's a torturer. His father, Papa Doc Duvalier in classic pre-Cuban dictatorship, Banana Republic dictatorship, Joseph Stalin Hitlerian type style, had built himself a miniature of the White House. It's probably still there, an exact miniature of the White House. They called it the White House in Port-au-Prince, which is where the royal family lived. He operated the Tantamakut, which means the something tigers, along with the mirror sunglasses and the undercover, and a lot of people disappeared. And in the basement of the White House were torture chambers. Papa Doc made sure that his son, Baby Doc, was well ready for inheriting the job when it became time by having his son attend torture sessions before he was a teenager. By the time that kid had his driver's license, he'd already put the gun to a lot of people's head and belligerently and exuberantly pulled the trigger at daddy's command. That guy's wife was named Michelle, and she was fucking hot. I mean, you'd need a thermal condom for this chick when she was in her prime. I mean, across the trackless void into space, kind of, she was hot, and she spoke French, and she was international, and she traveled the world, and she knew the difference between the difference of things. And when Michelle heard that anybody interesting or my bad luck tan, which in Haiti, this was my bad luck, this color, she would definitely show up, which was a kiss of death. I remember one bar owner, a fella from Holland or some fuck, he was in his 40s, handsome guy, was panicking. Oh my God. Somebody just told me Michelle's coming to the bar and she's going to want to meet me and she's going to love me and she's going to tell me to take her dancing and her fucking husband is going to get jealous and I'm going to disappear into the fucking basement. And no shit, Tommy left the fucking island. I was gorgeous back then. You got to admit it. And I was Tarzan with a bar mitzvah, and everybody knew I was around, and I made sure they stayed knowing it in 5 different languages. I got along with everybody from the bar help all the way up to, but not including Baby Doc Duvalier. You wanted nothing to do with him. When I talked to you about I used to take a few rides on the Executioner, that was the name of his cigarette boat. It was not with Baby Doc. It was with the mechanics, some fellas. They were locals. They'd been educated somewhere like Marseille, a seaport in France. They'd been merchant seamen. They understood maritime engineering. They were very well versed, multilingual, understood maritime communications. They knew and loved Van Halen. I wanted nothing to do with Baby Doc and his very gorgeous nymphomaniac fucking wife, Michelle. I had 2 near misses when we heard she was coming up the coast. It was about an hour away by boat, and she was going to be visiting the little inn that we were staying at, and I managed to go camping. Another time I actually wasn't there. But the horror would be for me to be standing there with some soaking wet scuba fins and a mask and a bathing suit and have somebody say, "Oh, Michelle has heard that you are here and she's bringing some of her girlfriends up. She has asked to meet you and to set aside a table for dinner if you're available." Well, there's nothing available for you to go to for 7 miles in any direction. Yes, of course you're available. So I had a standing, it wasn't an offer, it was a standing agreement with my security guy, Big Ed. Ed Van Halen, remember, we called him Vart because his mom referred to him as Etvart. That was her accent. I said it with respect. Etvart. So we called him Vart. My security guy was Big Ed. Big Ed was about 5'9" and every bit as wide, and he had big old meat hooks at the end of his Bensonhurst arms. He could have traded punches with a fucking steam shovel. And we had a standing thing. I used to tell him before we would go to Haiti. We went to many islands, and I would share with him, Ed, if you can't do this, don't get on the plane. We'll change the island that I'm going to, or don't come with me. I'll find somebody else to take over for a couple of weeks. But if I find out that Michelle is on her way and there is no escape for me, I already know what's going to happen. She's going to fall in love with me, and she's going to start asking that I take her dancing and that I go dancing. The last fucking thing I want to be in is a photo with Baby Doc Duvalier's super hot fucking nymphomaniac wife. That's a fast trip into the basement of the White House with no return ticket. So here's Here's the recipe. I used to tell it to him. If I hear about it, it'll be in that front little bar, which is about the size of this living room, from some of the bar help. I'll turn to you, Ed, because you'll probably be with me, and I'll say, great. I've always wanted to meet Michelle, and we're going to start drinking right there in front of everybody. And I don't mean Prestige beers, which is, that's Haitian beer, Prestige. I mean, we're going to get a bottle of rum. And we're going to split that fucking thing. And we're going to celebrate. We're going to ask them to turn up the music because we're going to meet royalty, etc. Okay? And then when I say we're going to go shower up, clean up to our rooms, our various rooms, you and me, and get ready for the people. We're going to walk around the corner and we're going to get into a fight. I want to give you a black eye. All right? And I'm going to turn my head. I know how to set myself up. And Ed, I don't care how many times you have to do it. I want you to pound in 6 of my teeth. Don't worry if it's the front teeth, my side teeth. I don't care if you cut my lips up, if I got to get stitches. I don't care if I got to wear a neck brace. But we got to have a Polaroid that in 38 languages says, this is why David Lee Roth didn't make it to dinner. Oh, by the way, you remember the fella in the 3-piece white suit with the shaved head named Prosper at the Olafson Hotel? Careful who you talk to and what you say when you do. About 12 years later, he was the new dictator. Roth Show.